With the likes of the Zodiac Killer who claimed the lives of 37 people, to the murder of Britain's most popular TV presenter Jill Dando, and even an unsolved case just 16 miles from my own location, some of the most complicated and strange murders remain unsolved throughout the world, and today we look at 50 of these cold cases, taking a deep dive into their circumstances and the events leading up to the crimes. Make sure to comment down below if you think I missed anything, and throw a like on the video if you enjoy these long form videos. Number 50. The murder of Anne Heron. One of the most well-known unsolved murders in northeast England is that of Anne Heron, British woman who was murdered on the 3rd of August 1990 at her home in Darlington, County Durham. Aeolian House, where Heron lived, was clearly visible from the busy main road, a route that leads to Teesside Airport from Darlington, thus being one of the busiest in the area. During the morning of August 3rd, 1990, Heron went shopping in the town of Darlington before returning to her home on the outskirts of the town around lunchtime. Frightened of being alone in the property, Anne often had friends round, or met her husband when he came home for lunch. Anne spoke to a friend on the telephone around 2:30 p.m. and sounded both happy and cheerful, while another friend passing on a bus saw her sunbathing in the garden at 3:30 p.m. This was the last known sighting of Anne alive, and she was discovered with a stab wound to the neck in her living room by her husband at 6 p.m. on his return from work. No signs of a struggle had taken place, and the family dog was still outside, indicating that Anne may have known her attacker personally. 1 week after the murder, it was discovered that her husband Peter was having an affair at the time and was initially charged with her murder. The case against him was later dropped by the Crown Prosecution Service due to lack of evidence, yet he remains a suspect in the murder along with other various unnamed individuals. Several witnesses claim to have seen a blue car, possibly a Vauxhall Astra, parked at the property around 4:45 p.m, and others claim to have seen a car being driven erratically near the property. 2 years after the murder, in 1992, Peter Heron remarried and has publicly defended himself in multiple interviews. Number 49. The Suzie Lamplugh murder. British estate agent Lamplugh was reported missing on 28 July 1986 in Fulham, London, and was officially declared dead, presumed murdered in 1993. Convicted criminal John Cannon is the current suspect in the case. However, police have never had enough evidence to charge him. DNA evidence has also shown that Lamplugh had previously been in a car that Cannon owned before her disappearance. Her car was found abandoned in a London street, and no sign of her car or house keys were present, with the driver's side seat in a position suggesting someone else had driven it. Both Lamplugh's boyfriend, a 27-year-old stockbroker, and her male flatmate had solid alibis, and her home was searched with nothing suspicious found. Cannon was eligible for parole in 2022 and has been described as both a control freak and power mad. Number 48. The George Murdoch slaying, dubbed the cheese wire murder. Murdoch was an Aberdeen taxi driver described as an ordinary working man. Happily married for 37 years, Murdoch had picked up an unknown passenger on Aberdeen's Queen's Road on the 29th of September 1983 before heading to Pitfordell's Station Road on the city outskirts. There he was attacked in a brutal fashion, with two teenagers witnessing the attack and the killer stealing Murdoch's fare money and wallet. The murder made headline news, and a £20,000 reward was offered for help in catching the suspect, later upgraded to £50,000 and still active to this day. Police have since announced that a DNA sample of the male killer had been identified, one that has been used to eliminate many suspects from the case. Number 47. The Hall Mills murders. Edward Wheeler Hall and Eleanor Mills, a member of his choir with whom he was having an affair, were both found murdered on September 14th, 1922, in Somerset, New Jersey. Torn-up love letters had been placed between them where they lay, and it looked as if the bodies had been positioned deliberately by someone who knew what they were doing. Hall had his calling card placed at his feet and a hat over his face, while Mills had a bruise on her arm and a tiny cut on her lip. Suspects in the murder included Hall's wife, Frances Noel Stevens, her two brothers, Henry Hugel Stevens and William Willie Carpenter Stevens, and a cousin, Henry Carpenter. All were later acquitted at the trial, which lasted 30 days and gained considerable press attention at the time, except for Henry Carpenter, who was never tried. The case remains cold, with all of the potential or new suspects now long since past. Number 46, Marian Hodge. Disappearing from Lockerbie in July 1984, Marian Hodge is thought to have been dropped off in the White Sands area of Dumfries around 7:30 a.m. on Friday, 6 July 1984. Thought to be carrying a blue canvas suitcase and brown handbag, she was reported missing 3 days later to Dumfries and Galloway Constabulary. She lived in Belgrave, Lockerbie and worked in the town's Clydesdale Bank, and was only 34 years old at the time of her disappearance. She was working in the bank during a notorious armed robbery months before her disappearance. Marian was declared legally dead by the Court of Session Edinburgh in 1992, and her body has never been found. She disappeared on her son's 15th birthday, and to this day the case remains one of the most infamous in Scotland's history. Number 45, the Borden murders. Found beaten on his own sofa, Andrew Borden had been attacked in his sleep, while his wife Abby had befell a gruesome attack upstairs in the guest bedroom. The killer was revealed to have been inside the house for both murders, which appeared to have happened just 2 hours apart. Lizzie Borden initially found her father before asking for her stepmother when Dr. S.W. Bowen and Alice Russell arrived at the scene. The murder weapon, which was estimated to have been an axe based on injuries to the victims, and the police faced massive pressure to solve the case quickly. By August 11th, Lizzie Borden was arrested and detained for murder, pleading not guilty at trial, later being found not guilty by the 12-man jury. After Lizzie Borden's death in 1927, the new residents of the home discovered a mysterious hammer beneath the barn door, yet it too was ruled not to have been the murder weapon. To this day, the mystery of the Borden murders remains cold. Number 44, the murder of Anne Ballantine, last seen weeks before, in Edinburgh during the month of November 1987. Ballantine was found about 100 yards from her home, wrapped in a carpet, and had most of her possessions stolen. Her flat too had been robbed, with a camera and a photo album also having found to have been taken. It is suspected that Anne may have been the first victim of Beast of Bramley John Taylor, who is serving life for another murder and a series of attacks at the turn of the millennium. The case, however, remains cold, with no one ever being spoken to about the crime. Number 43, the slaying of Rusty Day. American rock singer Day was best known for his work with Cactus, the Amboy Dukes and Steve Gaines. Only 2 years after forming his final band, the Rusty Day Band, in 1979, he was fatally shot at his home on June 3rd, 1982. His son, Dog, and Garth McRae were also killed in the same incident, and the police now believe that they may have known their killers. Ron Sanders, guitarist and bandmate in Uncle Acid and the Permanent Damage Band, was later accused of the murders, yet after shooting himself 6 weeks later, this could never be proven. Number 42, the killing of DC Jim Morrison. Off-duty police officer DC Jim Morrison was walking through Covent Garden when he witnessed a handbag theft and chased after the robbery suspect on the 13th December 1991. Cornering the individual in Montreal Place, Morrison was fatally stabbed by the attacker and died at the scene, later being posthumously granted the Queen's Gallantry Medal. 30 years on, and the killer, who was said to be of North African appearance, has never been caught, and police are still seeking information. Today, a memorial to DC Jim Morrison sits in India Place. Number 41, the Bigfoot killings. The Bigfoot Killer, also known as the Cass Ripper, is the moniker given to an unidentified serial killer who terrorized Detroit's Cass Corridor neighborhood in 1975. Between February and October of that year, 7 women, aged 16 to 43, were brutally murdered, with the victims were predominantly impoverished and engaged in prostitution, making them vulnerable targets. Survivors described the attacker as a tall, muscular African-American man with facial hair and an afro, estimated to be between 30 and 35 years old. Notably, he had unusually large hands and feet, leading authorities to speculate he might have suffered from acromegaly, a hormonal disorder that results in enlarged features, and this characteristic earned him the nickname Bigfoot. Despite creating a facial composite based on survivor accounts, the police have so far been unable to apprehend the killer. Number 40. The Julie Finley murder. Julie was last seen on the evening of August 5th, 1994, near the Royal Liverpool University Hospital, speaking with a man believed to be in his 20s or 30s. The following day, her naked body was discovered in a carrot field near the Rainford bypass in St Helens, Merseyside. She was found just metres from a busy dual carriageway, and at the time, Merseyside police faced a surge in violent crimes, which may have impacted the investigation's progress. In 2006, a £20,000 reward was offered for information leading to a conviction. Detectives also appealed for a friend named Tina, who had contacted the police shortly after the murder, stating that Julie intended to meet a taxi driver from the Prescott area. Tina did not follow up, and investigators hoped she would come forward again. Julie's murder has been examined for potential links to several known serial killers, including Alan Kite, dubbed the Midlands Ripper, and Christopher Halliwell. Despite renewed appeals and forensic reviews, Julie Finley's killer has not been identified. Her family continues to seek justice, and Merseyside police urge anyone with information to come forward. Number 39, the Tyrone Mulinde mystery. Mulinde, a 20-year-old Ugandan national, was stabbed in the arm and heart on the 20th of October 2018 at a flat in a Bridgewater hostel known as Dampier House. It was a flat that belonged to someone else but had been taken over by Mulinde and fellow drug dealers. A man and a woman from London were charged and committed to trial, with the man accused of stabbing Mulinde over money issues and the woman of helping her co-defendant carry out the act, but both were acquitted. Number 38, the John Kennedy murder. On February 8, 1997, 31-year-old John Kennedy was fatally stabbed during a night out at the Railway Arms pub on Sutton Street in Wapping, East London. The attack occurred around 5:50 a.m. Despite the presence of witnesses, many were reluctant to speak to the police at the time, and the case remains unsolved. In 2022, the Metropolitan Police offered a £30,000 reward for information leading to a conviction, urging anyone with knowledge of the incident to come forward. Number 37, the Duck Walk killings. The Duck Walk Killer is an unidentified individual responsible for 2 fatal shootings in Chicago's Rogers Park neighborhood in late 2018. The nickname arises from the suspect's distinctive gait, observed in surveillance footage, where he walks with his toes pointed outward. a duck-like walk. Several victims included Douglas Watts, 73, who was walking his dogs near his home when he was shot in the head at point-blank range, and there was no apparent motive. He was neither robbed nor involved in any known disputes. The second victim, Eliyahu Moskowitz, 24, was killed less than 36 hours later. On the evening of October 1st, 2018, Moskowitz was shot in the head while walking through Loyola Park, about half a mile from the first crime scene. Like Watts, he was not robbed and the attack appeared unprovoked. Number 36. The John Kennedy Murder. The unsolved murder of Alan Rosser remains one of Blackpool's most perplexing cold cases, with potential ties to organised crime and drug trafficking. On the 12th of November 1999, at approximately 6:30 p.m, 34-year-old Alan Rosser was shot in the head at close range outside his garage, Imperial Engineering, located on Back Eve Street in North Shore, Blackpool. A nearby worker heard an argument followed by a gunshot and discovered Rosser collapsed. He was transported to Blackpool Victoria Hospital and later to the Royal Preston Hospital, where he succumbed to his injuries the following day. Rosser was a well-known mechanic and scooter enthusiast, particularly among the mod community for his work on Vespa scooters. The murder investigation involved 75 detectives and explored Rosser's potential connections to low-level drug trafficking and organised crime. Police believed he might have owed a significant sum of money, possibly related to drug dealings. In March 2000, a man was arrested in Whitefield, Manchester, in connection with the case but was released without charge. Since then, the investigation has seen little progress. Number 35. The John Kennedy Murder. Between 2001 and 2018, at least 51 women, predominantly black and often involved in sex work or experiencing homelessness, were found murdered by strangulation or asphyxiation. Their bodies were frequently discovered in alleys, abandoned buildings, garbage bins, or vacant lots, primarily in Chicago's South and West Side neighborhoods. The pattern was identified by journalist Thomas Hargrove, founder of the Murder Accountability Project, using an algorithm that analyzes unsolved homicides by location, victim, and killing method. MAP highlighted clusters of cases with similar characteristics, suggesting the possibility of a serial killer. In response to mounting pressure, the Chicago Police Department announced a review of these cases. However, they stated there was no evidence to confirm a single perpetrator responsible for all the murders. As of now, the majority of these cases remain unsolved and the police continue to investigate, and community activists persist in advocating for justice and increased attention to these crimes. Number 34. The unsolved Sarah Benford case. The unsolved case of Sarah Benford remains one of the most haunting disappearances in Northamptonshire, England. Sarah, a 14-year-old girl from Kettering, vanished in April 2000 after leaving a care home, and despite extensive investigations, her whereabouts remain unknown. Sarah was described as a troubled teenager who had a history of running away and had spent time in various care facilities, including Welford House in Northampton. On April 4th, 2000, she absconded from Welford House and returned to Kettering, and she was last seen by her mother in Kettering Town Centre on April 6th, 2000. Subsequent sightings placed her in areas such as Almond Road, Highfield Road, and Cherry Road in Kettering. At the time of her disappearance, Sarah was wearing patchwork dark blue jeans, an orange fleece, a black puffer jacket, cream trainers, and was carrying a navy and green rucksack. In November 2021, following significant intelligence, police began excavating a 70-metre by 70-metre area of open land in the Valley Walk area of Kettering. As of now, Sarah's case remains unsolved. Northamptonshire police continue to appeal for information. emphasising that someone may hold vital details about her disappearance. Number 33, the I-70 Strangler case. Between 1980 and 1991 in the Midwestern United States, at least 12 young men and boys are thought to have become the victims of an as-yet unidentified serial killer. The victims were predominantly gay men, aged between their teens and early 30s, and many were last seen in or around gay bars in Indianapolis, Indiana. The killer is believed to have lured them from these establishments, subsequently strangling them with the bodies often found nude or partially clothed and dumped in rural areas near Interstate 70, frequently in rivers, streams or ditches. While the case remains officially unsolved, Herb Baumeister, a businessman from Indiana, emerged as a prime suspect. Baumeister owned the Save Lot thrift store chain and lived with his family at Fox Hollow Farm in Westfield, Indiana, and led a double life, frequenting gay bars and allegedly luring young men to his property. Investigators noted that the I-70 Strangler murders ceased around the time Baumeister purchased Fox Hollow Farm, suggesting a possible shift in his disposal methods. Despite the circumstantial evidence linking Baumeister to the I-70 Strangler killings, no definitive proof has been established and the case remains open. Number 32, the Michelle Bettles mystery. Michelle, a 22-year-old mother of 3, was last seen alive in Norwich's red light district on the evening of Thursday 28th March 2002. CCTV footage captured her walking along St Benedict Street towards the city centre at 8:20 p.m, heading in the opposite direction from her planned meeting. On Sunday 31st March 2002, Michelle's fully clothed body was discovered by a local resident in Woodland, beside Rush Meadow Road in Scarning, near Dereham, approximately 20 miles from Norwich. In March 2022, marking the 20th anniversary of Michelle's murder, Norfolk police announced a significant development. Advancements in forensic technology enabled them to re-examine DNA evidence from the crime scene, leading to the discovery of a complete male DNA profile on Michelle's clothing. Following the DNA breakthrough, Michelle's parents, John Bettles and Denise Taylor, made a heartfelt appeal for information, urging anyone who had contact with Michelle around the time of her death to come forward. Number 31, the Dayton Strangler killings. The Dayton Strangler, also known as Jack the Strangler, was an unidentified serial killer who terrorised Dayton, Ohio between 1900 and 1910. This elusive predator is believed to have murdered at least 5 young women and girls, instilling fear throughout the community. Victims included Ada Lance, Donna Gilman, Anna Markowitz, Mary Forshner, and Elizabeth Lizzie Fullhart. These victims shared commonalities in that they were young females who suffered brutal assaults, often involving strangulation. During the decade-long spree, several suspects were arrested, but none were definitively linked to all the murders, including Harrison Blessing, Leighton Hines, James Rogers, and Hick White. Despite these arrests, the true identity of the Dayton Strangler remains unknown. Number 30, the Alistair Wilson murder. The unsolved murder of Alistair Wilson remains one of Scotland's most perplexing cases, when the 30-year-old banker was fatally shot on the doorstep of his home in Nairn, a coastal town in the Scottish Highlands. Around 7 p.m, a man wearing a baseball cap and dark clothing knocked on the Wilsons' door. Alistair's wife Veronica answered, and the man asked for Alistair by name. Alistair spoke briefly with the visitor and returned inside holding a blue envelope with the name Paul written on it. Puzzled, he went back to the door, where he was shot 3 times. He died later that evening in hospital. The murder weapon, a rare Hainel Sewell pocket pistol from the 1930s, was found 10 days later in a nearby drain, and forensic analysis confirmed it as the murder weapon, but no DNA evidence was recovered. Alistair had objected to a retrospective planning application for a decking area at the Havelock Hotel, located opposite his home, and the local planning dispute might have been a motive. In September 2024, Scotland's Lord Advocate Dorothy Bain KC ordered a complete reinvestigation of the case, and a new team of prosecutors and Police Scotland officers has been assembled to re-examine all evidence. The investigation has even extended internationally, with detectives travelling to Nova Scotia, Canada in 2022 to interview potential witnesses. Number 29. The Legs Diamond Mystery. Diamond rose to prominence during Prohibition as a bootlegger and racketeer in New York City, and was known for his flamboyant lifestyle and numerous run-ins with the law, earning nicknames like Gentleman Jack and the Clay Pigeon of the Underworld. On December 17, 1931, Diamond was acquitted of kidnapping charges in Troy, New York. That evening he celebrated with friends and his mistress, Marian Kiki Roberts, at the Rainbow Room in Albany. Around 4:30 a.m. he returned to his rooming house at 67 Dove Street and fell asleep when approximately an hour later 2 assailants entered his room. One held him down while the other shot him 3 times in the back of the head. Several theories have emerged regarding who was responsible for Diamond's murder, including rival gangster Dutch Schultz, Democratic boss Albany political machine, and other gangster figures such as Lucky Luciano and the Oley brothers. The house at 67 Dove Street where Diamond was killed has since become a historical landmark, owned by Pulitzer Prize-winning author William Kennedy. Number 28. The Norah Tate Murder. On the 12th of October 2005, the 69-year-old retired seamstress was brutally killed in her home on Stone Close Avenue in Hexthorpe, Doncaster. She had just returned from buying fish and chips, which were later found untouched on her dining table when a friend discovered her body the following day. One of South Yorkshire's most haunting unsolved cases, the only item reported missing was a black leather purse, possibly containing around £100. Police sought to identify a man seen selling food door to door in the area around the time of the murder, described as white, aged 20 to 30, 5 feet 5 inches to 5 feet 8 inches tall, with a Yorkshire accent and possibly wearing a long khaki coat. He was dubbed the Knockoff Lad. A 2010 feature on BBC's Crime Watch led to several new leads, including names linked to the e-fit of the door-to-door seller and potential suspects. South Yorkshire police have made 9 arrests over the years, but no charges have been brought, and in 2020, detectives utilised advanced DNA analysis techniques on evidence from the crime scene, hoping for breakthroughs similar to those in other cold cases. Norah's family continues to seek justice and urge anyone with information, no matter how minor it may seem, to come forward. Number 27. The Dr. No Killings. Primarily targeting sex workers at truck stops along Interstate 71 in Ohio, the nickname Dr. No originated from a suspect's CB radio handle, as reported by witnesses. The murders began in 1981 with the discovery of an unidentified woman, later known as the Buckskin Girl, in Miami County, Ohio, who was identified in 2018 as Marsha King. Other victims include Marsha Matthews, Shirley Dean Taylor, April Barnett, Jill Allen, Anne-Marie Patterson, and many more. Authorities interviewed numerous individuals, including sex workers and truck stop employees. Witnesses described the suspect as a tall, large man with fair skin, dark hair, glasses, and a northeastern accent, driving a silver 1984 truck with a red hood. Despite detaining several individuals nicknamed Dr. No, no charges were filed and the case remains unsolved. Number 26, the murder of Alan Wood. One of Lincolnshire's most disturbing cases, Alan, a 50-year-old gardener known for his kind nature and lack of enemies, was found brutally murdered in his home in Lound, near Bourne. Investigators believe the attack was aimed to extract his bank card pins, as his cards were later used in Bourne and Stamford, yielding only a few £100. In 2014, police sought to locate Paweł Wzyszcz, a Polish national who lived in the Peterborough area at the time, and while not a suspect, detectives believed he might have information pertinent to the case. Lincolnshire police have made multiple public appeals, including features on BBC's Crime Watch, and have offered a reward, reported as up to £60,000, for information leading to a conviction. In 2015, the case was revisited in a documentary aiming to generate new leads, yet Alan's family continues to seek closure. Number 25, the case of the Eastbound Strangler. Responsible for the deaths of 4 women in Atlantic City, New Jersey in 2006, when the bodies were discovered in a drainage ditch behind the Golden Key Motel on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township. All 4 women were found face down, fully clothed except for their shoes and socks, and positioned in a row with their heads pointing east, which led to the killer's nickname. Several individuals were investigated, including Terry Olson, a repairman staying at the Golden Key Motel during the time of the murders, and Eldred Raymond Burchell, who referred to himself as the Riverman. Further suspects include Charles Coles and Mark Hesse, acquaintances of some victims who were questioned but released without charge. Despite these investigations, no one has been charged and the killer remains unidentified. Number 24, the murder of Barry Rubery. The murder of Barry Rubery in April 2010 remains one of South Gloucestershire's most unsettling unsolved cases. Barry, a 68-year-old retired farm labourer and grandfather of 6, was found brutally beaten and bound in his home in Iron Acton near Bristol. On the evening of April 28, 2010, Barry attended a dinner at a Masonic lodge in Bristol. He returned to his residence Crossing Cottage on Latteridge Road around 10:45 p.m. The following morning, a friend discovered his body in the conservatory. Barry had been tied up with electrical flex and cable ties and had suffered fatal head injuries from a violent assault. His home had been ransacked, with several items stolen, including a gold Masonic pocket watch, a Makita drill, keys, a Nokia 3310 mobile phone, and an extension lead. Avon and Somerset police believe Barry may have interrupted a burglary, or that he was specifically targeted. Crime Stoppers has offered a £20,000 reward for information leading to a conviction, yet despite extensive investigations, his killer has never been brought to justice. Number 23, the Gold Sock Killer. The Gold Sock Killer is the moniker given to an unidentified serial killer responsible for a series of attacks in Broward County, Florida, during the summer of 1973. The killer is believed to have murdered 3 females and attempted to kill a 4th using socks, often gold-coloured, to strangle his victims. Jonina Gudjonsdottir Kelpian was last seen around 3 a.m. in Fort Lauderdale, and her body was discovered later that morning in a yard approximately a mile from her home. She had been attacked with a gold-coloured stretch sock. Another surviving victim was attacked in her Fort Lauderdale apartment by a slim blonde-haired white man who entered through a pried open window and attempted to strangle her with a gold sock. On August 8, 1973, Teresa Ann Williams was found in a marshy area off Sheridan Street in Hollywood, Florida. She'd been missing since August 3rd, and her car was later found with a flat tyre, her cat meowing inside. Finally, August 29, 1973, Marisol Curtis, just 16 years old, was last seen at her apartment complex in Surf Road after she left her parents' apartment around 8 p.m. and was found the next morning submerged in the intracoastal waterway, held down by concrete blocks. Police questioned over 200 individuals, with 35 undergoing lie detector tests, all of which were passed with forensic evidence, including fingerprints and footprints, also collected. The case remains unsolved and the identity of the gold sock killer is still unknown. Number 22. The Eve Stratford murder. On the 18th of March 1975, Eve Stratford was found murdered in her flat on Lyndhurst Drive, Leyton, East London. Her boyfriend Tony Priest, the lead singer of the band Onyx, discovered her body upon returning home around 5:20 p.m. Neighbours reported hearing a male and female voice followed by a loud thud around 4:30 p.m. Stratford had been seen walking home from Leytonstone tube station at approximately 3:30 p.m. after meeting with her agent. Just days before her death, Stratford appeared as the Girl of the Month on the cover of Mayfair magazine, an adult publication. The issue featured nude photographs and an interview in which she discussed her sexuality, stating she enjoyed being submissive and found it easy to attract men. Investigators found no signs of forced entry, suggesting Stratford may have known her attacker or willingly let them in. In March 2025, marking the 50th anniversary of Stratford's death, former colleagues from the Playboy Club paid tribute by sending flowers to her grave, and the killer remains at large. Number 21. The Cameo Murders. The Cameo murder occurred on 19 March 1949 when a masked gunman shot and killed Leonard Thomas and Bernard Catterall during a robbery at the Cameo Cinema. Both men were shot in the cinema's office during what appeared to be a botched robbery. Notably, the assailant fled the scene without taking any money. The initial investigation yielded few leads until police received information from two criminals, Jacqueline Dixon and James Northam, who claimed knowledge of the crime in exchange for immunity. Their testimonies led to the arrests of George Kelly and Charles Connolly, two local men with minor criminal records. Despite both men providing alibis and asserting they had never met, they were charged with the murders. Kelly was tried first, found guilty, and subsequently executed in March 1950. Connolly, facing the likelihood of a similar fate, accepted a plea deal for conspiracy and served 10 years in prison. Decades later, concerns about the integrity of the convictions emerged. In 2003, the Court of Appeal quashed both convictions after it was revealed that police had withheld a key witness statement suggesting another individual had confessed to the murders. Following the exoneration, George Kelly's remains were exhumed from Walton Prison and reburied in consecrated ground, honouring his family's long-standing belief in his innocence. Number 20. The tragic case of Ursula Herrmann. The tragic case of Ursula Herrmann, often referred to as the girl in the box, remains one of Germany's most haunting child abduction cases. On 15 September 1981, 10-year-old Ursula disappeared while cycling home from her cousin's house near Lake Ammersee in Bavaria, a journey that usually took just 10 minutes. 2 days after Ursula vanished, her family began receiving cryptic phone calls featuring only a radio jingle from Buy and Dre. Subsequently, a ransom note arrived demanding 2 million Deutsche Marks and explaining that the jingle was a signal for the family to confirm their willingness to pay. Despite the family's affirmative response and readiness to comply, no further instructions were provided and communication from the kidnappers ceased. Approximately 2 weeks later, on 4 October 1981, police discovered Ursula's body in a wooden box buried in the Weingarten forest. The initial investigation was extensive but yielded little progress. However, in 2008, attention turned to Werner Mazurek, a neighbour of the Hermann family. Evidence against him included a tape recorder found in his possession, which forensic experts linked to the distinctive jingle heard in the ransom calls. The case has been featured in various media outlets, including the German television series Aktenzeichen XY Ungelöst and documentaries like Ich war es nicht, Zwei Urteile und viele Zweifel. Number 19. The unsolved Angelo Bruno case. The unsolved murder of Angelo Bruno, the longtime boss of the Philadelphia crime family, is one of the most pivotal and mysterious events in American mafia history. Bruno was known for his low-key leadership style and preference for diplomacy over violence. He maintained relative peace within the Philly mob and built strong relationships with other mafia families, especially the New York-based Five families. Bruno was shot in the back of the head with a shotgun while sitting in his car, but what shocked the public and law enforcement alike was the boldness and betrayal. Bruno was killed in his own territory, something generally forbidden in mob protocol without Mafia Commission approval. Though never officially solved, several theories and suspects have since emerged, with Bruno's consigliere Antonio Caponegro, also known as Tony Bananas, widely believed to have orchestrated the hit. Soon after Bruno's murder, Caponegro was found dead in the Bronx, allegedly murdered by the Commissioner's punishment for the unsanctioned hit. Number 18. The Kirsty Jones Thailand murder. One of the most distressing cases involving a British national abroad, Kirsty, a 23-year-old from Tredoman near Brecon, Wales, was tragically killed on the 10th of August 2000 while staying at the Ari Guest House in Chiang Mai, Thailand. She was 3 months into a 2-year solo backpacking journey across Asia, and despite several arrests and the collection of a DNA profile from the crime scene, no charges were ever brought. In 2001, the Dyfed Powys Police from Wales became involved, collaborating with Thai authorities and conducting forensic examinations in the UK. They re-interviewed witnesses and pursued various leads, including a Thai university lecturer who declined to provide a DNA sample, necessitating legal proceedings to obtain one. In 2013, Dyfed Powys Police were granted permission to forensically review evidence collected by Thai officers, including items from the crime scene. Despite these efforts, the case remained unresolved. Under Thai law, the statute of limitations for murder is 20 years, and consequently, on the 9th of August 2020, the investigation was officially closed. This closure was a significant blow to Kirsty's family, who had tirelessly campaigned for justice. Number 17. The Jill Dando murder. One of the most famous unsolved murders in British criminal history, one of the UK's most beloved TV personalities, Jill Dando was shot on her front doorstep. The killer fled quickly and no neighbours reported seeing the shooter clearly, with the execution-style killing led to a media frenzy, and the method so clinical and quiet, some speculated a professional hitman may have been involved. After a year of investigation and intense public pressure, the police arrested a man named Barry George, who lived nearby and had a history of stalking women and minor offences. Barry George was found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment, however, in 2008, after new forensic reviews found the evidence unreliable and George's conviction was quashed squashed. Jill's work on Crime Watch may have made her a target for criminals, and due to the method of the killing, some speculated it was an assassination. As of now, Jill Dando's murder remains officially unsolved.
Number 16. The Marie Roget Case.
The Marie Roget case is a fascinating blend of real-life mystery and literary interpretation, with the case referring to a real unsolved murder in New York City in 1841. Mary became famous in New York for her beauty and charm while working at the cigar store, drawing in a largely male clientele, including writers like Washington Irving. She had disappeared 3 days before July 28, 1841, when her body was discovered in the Hudson River near Hoboken, New Jersey. Her death was initially ruled a drowning, but bruises and other signs of violence suggested she had been murdered. Conflicting witness reports, false confessions, and sensational newspaper coverage muddied the investigation, and the case attracted enormous public attention. To this day, no one was ever charged, and the case remains officially unsolved.
Number 15. The JonBenét Ramsey Murder.
The JonBenét Ramsey murder is one of the most haunting and controversial unsolved cases in modern American history, a mix of mystery, media frenzy, and speculation that continues decades later. JonBenét was a young girl known for competing in beauty pageants, often seen in costumes, makeup, and on-stage performances. Her body was found by her father, John Ramsey, in the basement 8 hours after her mother, Patsy Ramsey, reported her missing and found a ransom note demanding $118,000. Boulder police were criticised early on for mishandling the crime scene, including allowing multiple people to roam the house before it was fully secured and not immediately separating the parents for questioning. Initial suspicion focused on Patsy Ramsey due to the handwriting of the ransom note and lack of forced entry, but some speculated an accidental death covered up as a kidnapping. Some theorised that JonBenét had been targeted by an outsider obsessed with her pageant appearances. In 2008, Boulder DA cleared the Ramsey family, citing touch DNA evidence from an unknown male on JonBenét's clothing. As of now, no one has ever been charged, and the case remains open. Number 14. The Edgar Allan Poe case. While not officially classified as a murder, the bizarre and unexplained circumstances surrounding his final days have fueled endless speculation, and some theories do suggest foul play. Poe is often considered the father of the detective fiction genre and a master of gothic horror and psychological thrillers. Poe was found delirious, incoherent, and wearing someone else's clothes outside a polling station on October 3rd, 1849, and was taken to Washington College Hospital, where he died 4 days later. Poe's official death certificate and medical records are lost, and no autopsy was performed, adding to the mystery. Some claim Poe was attacked or poisoned, possibly for romantic, political, or financial motives. Later forensic testing of Poe's hair revealed no lethal levels of common poisons, though some inconsistencies remain. Number 13. The Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman double murder. Nicole Brown Simpson, ex-wife of football star O.J. Simpson, and her friend Ron Goldman were found dead outside Nicole's townhouse between 10:15 p.m. and 10:45 p.m. The crime scene was gruesome. Nicole had injuries common with car accident victims, and Ron, a 25-year-old restaurant waiter, was believed to have died trying to defend her. All signs pointed to one man, Nicole's ex-husband, NFL Hall of Famer and Hollywood actor O.J. Simpson, But before he could be arrested, OJ fled and led police on the most iconic low-speed chase in US history, with 95 million people tuning in. With high-profile lawyers like Johnny Cochran and Robert Kardashian, the defense turned the trial into a media spectacle. Cochran famously said, "If it doesn't fit, you must acquit," referring to the bloody glove that didn't fit OJ during the trial. The verdict shocked the world. Many believed OJ was guilty, however others saw the trial as a reflection of racial bias and injustice in America's legal system. The country was divided. To this day, the double murder of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman remains one of the most analysed, unsolved and debated cases in modern American history. Was justice truly served, or did a celebrity walk free because of fame and power? Let us know your thoughts in the comments.
Number 12. The Women of Ciudad Juarez.
The murders of the women of Ciudad Juarez represent one of the most haunting and heartbreaking unsolved crime waves in the modern era, a dark and ongoing human rights crisis in Mexico's northern border city. Estimates of victims range from hundreds to over 1,000 women, and while largely unsolved, only a fraction of the cases have been properly investigated or prosecuted. Mexican authorities have been accused of mishandling evidence, blaming the victims, and failing to follow up leads. There are allegations of police involvement or protection of suspects, especially those connected to drug cartels or powerful elites. Juarez is a major trafficking hub, and some murders are believed to be connected to organised crime, sex trafficking, or ritualistic killings used as cartel warnings. Due to low prosecution rates, bribery, and a broken justice system, the city has become a place where killers believe they can get away with murder.
Number 11. The Murders of Tupac Shakur and the Notorious B.I.G.
The unsolved murders of Tupac Shakur and Christopher Wallace, better known as the Notorious B.I.G. or Biggie Smalls, remain two of the most shocking and controversial events in music history. More than just the loss of two brilliant artists, their deaths symbolised the peak of the East Coast-West Coast rap rivalry that defined the 1990s. Tupac Shakur was fatally shot on September 7th, 1996 in a drive-by shooting in Las Vegas as he was leaving a Mike Tyson boxing match with Death Row Records CEO Suge Knight when a white Cadillac pulled up and opened fire. Tupac was hit 4 times and died 6 days later at the age of 25, although numerous theories have circulated, from gang retaliation to record label feuds. No one was arrested for his murder until 2023, when Dwayne "Keffy D. Davis was indicted, finally giving the case a new direction after nearly 3 decades. Just 6 months later, on March 9th, 1997, the Notorious B.I.G. was killed in a similar fashion in Los Angeles. While leaving a Vibe magazine party, his SUV was ambushed by an unknown assailant who fired multiple shots. Biggie was struck 4 times and pronounced dead shortly after. He was only 24 years old. Like Tupac's case, Biggie's murder sparked countless conspiracy theories involving law enforcement, gang affiliations, and even the FBI, and to this day no arrests have been made. Both rappers were at the height of their careers, shaping the sound and culture of hip-hop with their lyrical genius and raw storytelling. Their rivalry, inflamed by media coverage and industry drama, is often blamed for setting the stage for their tragic ends.
Number 10. The Glico Morinaga Case. On March 18th, 1984, masked men broke into the home of Katsuhisa Ezaki, the president of Ezaki Glico, a major Japanese confectionery company. The intruders tied up his family, forced them to give up his location, and kidnapped him. Shortly after, the attackers set fire to Glico facilities and sent threatening letters to the media and police. After the kidnapping, the same group group began sending letters claiming they had laced Glico candies with cyanide. Although none of the products in stores were actually poisoned, the fear led Glico to pull products off the shelves, costing them millions of yen and damaging their brand. The group began signing their letters as the Monster with 21 Faces, but a reference to a villain from a Japanese detective novel. To this day, no one knows who the group was, and multiple suspects were questioned, but no arrests were made. Number 9. The Jeanette De Palma murder. On August 7th, 1972, Jeanette left her home telling her mother she was visiting a friend in Berkeley Heights. She never arrived, and 6 weeks later her body was found atop a cliff in Springfield's Hodai Quarry, known locally as the Devil's Teeth. The autopsy revealed no signs of trauma, suggesting strangulation as the cause of death. An unusually high level of lead was also detected in her remains, with the investigation initially focused on a homeless man named Red, but no evidence linked him to the crime. In 2021, convicted serial killer Richard Cottingham, known as the Torso Killer, claimed in letters to journalist Jesse P. Pollock that he might have abducted and killed Jeanette while she was hitchhiking. Pollock forwarded this information to the Union County Prosecutor's Office, but as of 2022, no updates have been provided by law enforcement. The Justice for Jeanette organisation, co-founded by Jeanette's nephew, continues to seek justice and raise awareness about her case. Number 8. The Tara Calico case. On September 20th, 1988, 19-year-old Tara Calico left her home in Belen, New Mexico around 9:30 a.m. for her usual morning bike ride along New Mexico State Road 47. She was riding her mother's neon pink 10-speed bicycle, as her own had a flat tyre. Tara had planned to return by noon to play tennis with her boyfriend and attend college classes later in the day. When she didn't return, her mother Patty Dole began searching along Tara's usual route, but found no sign of her. Pieces of Tara's Sony Walkman and a cassette tape were discovered along the road, suggesting she may have dropped them while trying to leave a trail. Several witnesses reported seeing a light-coloured pickup truck, possibly a 1953 Ford, with a camper shell following closely behind her. Despite extensive searches, Tara was never found, and her disappearance remains unsolved, and Tara's case has been featured on numerous television programmes, including Unsolved Mysteries, America's Most Wanted, and 48 Hours. In 1998, she was officially declared dead, with the cause of death listed as homicide. Number 7. The Jack the Ripper case. Not only the most famous unsolved murder in Britain, but also the world Jack the Ripper, to this day remains in the shadows of the criminal underworld and is all but gone from the world. Between August and November 1888, 5 women, Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes and Mary Jane Kelly, were brutally murdered in London's impoverished Whitechapel district. These victims, often referred to as the Canonical Five, were typically engaged in prostitution and lived in the area's slums. The murders involve the same type of attack and lead to speculation that the killer had anatomical or surgical knowledge. Over the years, numerous individuals have been proposed as suspects, but none have been definitively proven to be the killer. In 2014, researcher Russell Edwards claimed to have identified Aaron Kosminski, a Polish barber and a contemporary suspect, as the murderer. He presented DNA evidence found on a shawl allegedly recovered from the scene of Catherine Eddowes' murder, matching descendants of both Eddowes and Kosminski. However, this claim has not been published in a peer-reviewed journal and remains controversial. Number 6. The Severed Feet mystery.
The severed feet mystery refers to a series of unusual discoveries of detached human feet washed ashore in the Salish Sea, a coastal region encompassing parts of British Columbia, Canada, and Washington State, USA. Since August 20th, 2007, at least 20 detached human feet have been found along the coasts of the Salish Sea. The feet were typically found inside running shoes, which helped keep them buoyant and protected from decomposition, allowing them to remain relatively intact. Authorities have generally ruled out foul play in these cases, attributing the phenomenon to natural decomposition processes where extremities like feet detach from the body and float ashore. However, others remain unconvinced. The Salish Sea is a complex marine ecosystem bordered by cities like Vancouver and Seattle, and the region's intricate waterways and varying currents contribute to the unusual phenomenon of detached feet washing ashore. Number 5. The Tylenol poisonings. Marked by the deliberate contamination of over-the-counter medication with cyanide, leading to 7 deaths in the Chicago area, the Tylenol poisonings of 1982 mark a chilling chapter in American criminal history. Between September 29th and October 1st, 1982, 7 individuals died after ingesting extra-strength Tylenol capsules laced with cyanide. The victims included Mary Kellerman, a 12-year-old girl, and Adam Janus, a 27-year-old postal worker, along with his brother and sister-in-law, who died after consuming Tylenol from the same bottle. The other victims were Mary Reiner, Mary McFarland, and Paula Prince, after the poison was introduced into the capsules after they had left the manufacturing facility, indicating that the tampering occurred on store shelves. The case prompted an extensive investigation by local and federal authorities. James Lewis, who had sent an extortion letter to Johnson & Johnson demanding $1 million to stop the killing, became a prime suspect. However, despite his conviction for extortion, no direct evidence linked him to the poisonings, and the case remains unsolved. Number 4. The Boy in the Box case. One of America's most enduring cold cases began on February 25th, 1957, when the body of a young boy was discovered in a cardboard box in the Fox Chase neighborhood of Philadelphia. Despite extensive efforts, including widespread media coverage and distribution of flyers, the boy's identity remained unknown for over 6 decades, earning him the moniker America's Unknown Child. In December 2022, advancements in DNA technology and genealogical research led to a breakthrough. Investigators exhumed the boy's body to extract DNA, which was then matched to a distant relative who had submitted their genetic information to a public database. This led to the identification of the boy as Joseph Augustus Sorelli, born on January 13th, 1953. Despite this identification, the circumstances surrounding Joseph's death remain unclear, and the case is still an open homicide investigation. On what would have been his 70th birthday, January 13th, 2023, a new headstone bearing Joseph's name and image was unveiled at his grave in Ivy Hill Cemetery, providing a long overdue recognition of his identity. Number 3. The Black Dahlia. On January 15, 1947, the body of 22-year-old Elizabeth Short was discovered in a vacant lot in Los Angeles. The gruesome nature of the crime and the lack of blood at the scene suggested that she had been killed elsewhere and her body transported to the lot. Short was identified through her fingerprints, which were on file due to a previous arrest. The press dubbed her the Black
Black Dahlia, a nickname inspired by the 1946 film The Blue Dahlia, and her reported preference for black clothing. The Los Angeles Police Department's investigation was extensive, with over 150 suspects considered. Despite numerous confessions, none led to a conviction, yet one notable theory involves Dr. George Hoddle, a physician whose son, former LAPD detective Steve Hoddle, later alleged was responsible for the murder. Steve Hoddle's investigation pointed to his father's surgical expertise and alleged connections to Short, but no charges were filed. Number 2. The Tam and Shud case. The Tam and Shud case, also known as the Somerton Man mystery, is one of Australia's most enduring unsolved cases. It began on December 1st, 1948, when the body of an unidentified man was discovered on Somerton Beach near Adelaide. The man was well dressed, with all labels removed from his clothing, and no identification was found on him, and the autopsy revealed no clear cause of death, though poisoning was suspected. A significant clue emerged months later when a small piece of paper with the words Tamam Shud, meaning ended or finished in Persian, was found hidden in a concealed pocket of the man's trousers. This phrase was traced to the final page of a copy of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. The specific book was located in a car near the discovery site, and inside it authorities found a code-like sequence of letters and a phone number. The phone number led to a woman who claimed to have once owned the book and had given it to a man named Alfred Boxall during World War II. However, Boxall was later found alive and the mystery deepened. In May 2021, the man's body was exhumed in hopes of extracting DNA, and by July 2022, researchers, including Professor Derek Abbott and genealogist Colleen Fitzpatrick, announced they had identified the Somerton Man as Carl Charles Webb, a Melbourne-born electrical engineer and instrument maker born in 1905. Despite this identification, many questions about his life and death remain unanswered. Number 1. The terrifying unsolved Zodiac Murders. Claiming in letters to the press that he had killed as many as 37 people, the Zodiac Killer is one of the most notorious, if not the most unidentified of all serial killers in American history. Responsible for a series of brutal attacks in Northern California during the late 1960s, between December 1968 and October 1969, the Zodiac murdered 5 confirmed victims and injured 2 others. The Zodiac's victims were often young couples in secluded areas, though his final confirmed victim was a taxi driver in an urban setting. The Zodiac gained notoriety through a series of taunting letters sent to newspapers in which he claimed responsibility for the murders and included cryptic ciphers. He demanded that the letters be published, threatening further violence if they were not, and of the 4 ciphers he sent, only 2 have been solved. The other 2 ciphers remain unsolved, and the Zodiac's true identity continues to elude investigators. Over the years, numerous suspects have been proposed, but none have been definitively linked to the crimes. The most prominent suspect was Arthur Lee Allen, a convicted sex offender who was investigated extensively but never charged. In 2021, a group called the Case Breakers claimed that Gary Francis Post, who died in 2018, was the Zodiac, but law enforcement agencies have not confirmed this identification. The case remains open in multiple jurisdictions, including the San Francisco Police Department and the FBI. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hype it up if you get the chance, and don't forget to check out another true crime video on this page.